Pharlight by Native Instruments, another very interesting library, very similar to Straylight. It on the outside looks very simple, but when you go under the hood, you'll see that there's a lot to it. There's macros, there's granular sampling, there's effects, and really interesting sounds that you can get from this. So this is a melodic human texture library, I guess, and it features human or vocals. So let's dive in, see how it works, what's inside, and get a sense of Pharlight. This is Pharlight, and we have different views. This is the perform view, and as you can see, we have the two layers. We have the grain, we have the sample, and let me play something. And as you can see, the grain layer is a granular synthesis or granular sampling idea, and on the sample side, it's just a simple sampler, and you can combine both of them. In the middle between them, we have the XY pad, which controls different parameters that you can assign. So let me play with that as well. And you can assign this also to the modulation wheel. So most of the time, you'll see that the modulation wheel controls the Y-axis. On the bottom, we have 4 different macros which you can assign to different parameters, and I'll show you how you can do that. And that's the basic idea of the perform. Now, in addition, of course, you can select a preset, and you have a browser, and you can just filter out the types, pitch, character, mood, and so on. So let's try and find something else, keys, for example, and then we can get complex. And just let's try this one. Now, of course, you can also start with a preset and then replace the samples. So, for example, I can just click this title of the sample and get something else, for example, this one. And you can mute either layers. You can change the velocity or the volume. And that's the perform view. Next, we have the grain. So the grain is again based on samples, but it features granular ideas, meaning we're taking that sample, slicing it to small pieces, and then replaying them in different ways. So we have the grain controls, and as you can see here, we have the interval between the grains, we have the size of the grains, fading in and out from and into the grains. And in addition to that, you can have different voices. So each of the voices, each of the keys plays will get different settings. Now we have a cursor. That's where we're beginning. That's the big knob here. That's the position to get started. And as you move to the right, you'll see that your cursor just start closer to the right side. And we also have scanning speed and jitter, which is the scan will be faster or slower, or can be locked to your host. And you just click this note here, and now you'll see the divisions. Jitter will be just something more natural, maybe some randomization that is injected into the whole engine here. And we have the ability to set the range. For example, we can have the left side or the right side, and you can just do this, and we can lock them and move everything together. So very, very cool. And you can also set these bound edges. the bounce will be just when the cursor hits any of the walls, it will just bounce over. And then we have tune, amp, and envelope, which are more, say, natural to samplers and synthesizers. We have an envelope, and we have the amp here to control this, and we can also have the tuning. So if you want to have something that is more pad-like, of course, you want to have the attack slower. Right, so if you don't know a lot about synthesis and what is an envelope, check my channel. I have lots of information about basic synthesis and the ideas behind this. And so I'm going to skip that for now. And we can also see on the bottom that we have the 4 macros here. So this panel, this section will follow the grain, sample, effect, and master views, and you can just flick through those send effects, macros, and modulations as you go between those views. So let's stick to send effect, and then we'll cover those later. And now that's the grain. Moving on to the sample view. The sample view is a basic sampler, that's it. So you have a sample, you can load your own samples, by the way, and you have just basic controls like the pitch, the start position. Let's mute the grain. And we also have some other controls. For example, we have a filter, and we can select the type of filter, and there's a lot to select from. And some of the filters will have gain, some will not. You have resonance and the cutoff point, and you can see the frequencies. And we have filter modulation. So that's the idea here, and we also have an amp envelope on the right. So that's the samples. Let's move to the effects. So the effects are really interesting. You have a choice of 4 slots for the grain, 4 slots for the sample, and you can choose which effect will be in any of those slots, and you can just move them around, and the chain goes from left to right. So here we have on the grain side, we have EQ, dynamics, and for example, whenever you select any of these, you'll see the controls that are related. So if we're in EQ, you'll see the EQ. If you click drive, you'll see the drive. Dynamics, here we have some more choices like the bus compressor, feedback compressor, limiter, transient master, and so on. These are some of the effects that you can find in native instruments as a standalone. So moving on, we have on the right side the same idea, but you can also see the choices here on the top. So we can go to the last one here and select, for example, a delay, another delay, for example. So clicking this. So I'm not going into the details of each of these effects and how they work and what are all the controls, but you'll get the idea very fast. In the middle, again, we have the XY pad. And I think just for fun, let's select some other presets. Let's get another one, like maybe something like atmospheres. Or this one. Very cool. So last we have the master view. So the master view is the master where everything sums up, and on the left side you'll see some MIDI controls assignments and MIDI learns for the X and Y. So if you have a controller, I'm using complete control, so you can map that very easily. Just click the learn and play with the knobs. And we also have the XY again here. On the right side, we have the master effect, and again, the chain goes from left to right, so pretty simple. Nothing is here except dynamics, and here we have a limiter. So I can actually add something else. Let's get a delay. And that is it for the master view. Now let's have a quick look at the bottom panel where we have sound effects, macros, and modulations. So going back to the grain, just to have an example here, we have the sound effects, and you can see that we have on the left and on the right, we have the grains and sample send levels. And we have two effects. We have the delay and we have the reverb. And just next to the grains, you'll see the delay. Next to the sample, you'll see the reverb. And in the middle, again, you'll see the XY pad. And you can select different types of delays and different types of reverbs. Very simple. So these are the sound effects. I think we can move on to the macros. So we have 4 macros, A, B, C, and D. So you'll see here the A, B, C, and D. And in the middle we have the X, Y. And if you want to assign anything to these macros, it's fairly simple. So the way to do it, and this is already a preset that is configured, but we'll use that one. So for example, if I want the gator to control, for example, the position here, all I need to do is click this little letter here. So normally that will be X. You'll see X most of the time, which means the X for the XY pad, but I can select, for example, a macro. Now it's not moving because we need to assign the range, and you do that with the little slider here. And you'll see the range on top of the control, and you'll see that little dot just moving as you change the macro. So the same goes to pretty much anything. We can go to effects and select, for example, the gator, and you'll see that this gator here actually controls this gator effect. We can have layer balance. For example, this will be the B macro. Can have this one to control, I don't know, for example, the drive. So I'm going to select this, select B, and again the range. And we can see that little dot moving around. And again, the XY will be clicking just this little thing here, the title, and then you select whatever you want the Y or the X to be controlled with. So that's in a nutshell, that's the macros. I'm not going any deeper than that. If you have any questions, just leave a comment and I'll do my best to answer. Moving on to modulation. So modulations are something that you can use to automate these controls. So you can use an LFO and just move around things. For example, let's automate this little drive here. So I can actually click this title here, go to LFO and play with that, and as I play you'll see that the LFO will move this drive, and now it's just moving back and forth in the frequency that is set for the LFO. So again, if you don't know about LFOs, what is an LFO and how to use modulations, check my channel for some basic synthesis course and some basic ideas around LFOs. I have some tutorials and some examples how to create sounds and how to use LFOs. And in addition to that, I'll show you just one other thing here in the modulation panel, which I think is pretty cool. That will be the shaper. So the shaper works in a way where you select an input. So for example, I'll take the first LFO here, and then I can assign this to something. So let's assign this to, for example, we'll lock this, and we can just use this, for example, to control the max here. So let's do this. We'll go to shaper, and we have two shapers, and now I can draw the curve. And you can see the right side, just the max is opening and closing as we go, and in relation to what I drew here. Right, so that's the idea here, and we also have a matrix control where we can combine different controls into two buses, sum them up, and that's the idea here. I might do a more advanced tutorial showing you some ideas around the modulations in a later time. So that's the modulation. I think we covered pretty much everything. So what we'll do now is I'll just select few examples of presets for you to enjoy, and you can listen to that, or you can go over to the product page and just listen to the examples there. And that's it. So thank you very much. I hope that was helpful. I hope you learned something, and of course subscribe to the channel, like, and leave a comment if you have any question, you just want to say hello. And if there's anything in particular that you want to learn about any of the tools, any of the things that comes from Native Instruments, let me know, and I'll do my best to create a tutorial or an overview on that. And that's it. So I'll see you in the next videos.